Thanks for checking out the Ideal Impact Podcast, where we discuss 5 key skills and the impact they can have on your life, as well as some major issues in society. You ready to get after it?
We're live.
Hey, we are live.
We're live at 6:30 in the damn morning.
It is bright. Well, it's not even bright and early. It's cold out.
It is. It's cold and it's dark and it's early and it's Saturday.
Yeah, I walked outside this morning. I was like, well, hello, fall. I guess you're here in the middle of August.
I don't like fall. I mean, I do like fall, but it means summer's over and I don't like that part.
Yeah, for you, that sucks. I love fall.
I mean, it's football season. I love football season, and I like the weather. I like campfires. I don't like work.
Yeah, I love campfires. And so it's 57 degrees outside right now. That's about half of what it was some days when I was down in Texas still.
That's stupid. I mean, we had here in Northeast Ohio, we had a pretty lame summer, like as far as heat. It wasn't, maybe it got hot like maybe a handful of times, but it was pretty average.
I'm good with that. So I'm not a fan of average other than temperature. Average temperatures is good.
Well, yeah, but like I was watching like the weather report before summer even started, and they're like, "This is going to be one of the hottest summers ever," and then it's not.
I think anytime they say that, like, oh, it's going to be the worst snowfall on record, and then we get like a half
nothing. Yeah, they're saying that too for winter. Prepare for a harsh winter.
There was no snow last year. It was snowed once. It snowed for Christmas, and it was super cold for Christmas for like 2 or 3 days, and that was it.
I can tell you how many snow days I got last year, and it was 0.
Worst snowfall on record, Randy.
Yeah, and there was usually there's cold days. There was not even that. So
no, you were on Christmas break when it was cold.
Yeah, that's super lame.
So, what do you think the weather is going to be like on Veterans Day 2023 for the first ever Ideal Ruck March?
If I had to guess, in early November, it's going to be cold.
Yeah, it's not going to be warm, especially on the shores of Lake Erie. Like you're walking directly next to the lake, so it's going to be brisk.
It's going to be a nice breeze coming off that lake.
It'll keep you cool. It's a good reminder to not bundle up too much because as you're walking 22 miles with weight on your back or a weighted vest, you're gonna get sweaty. So
luckily, you're gonna sweat your ass off. You're gonna be hot.
Yeah, make sure your ears are covered though. That's definitely one thing that will not stay warm.
They make hats and earmuffs and headbands.
Do they?
Yeah.
It's crazy. I just use my hands.
You could do that too. You could just walk 22 miles with your hands on your ears.
Yeah, be good for your shoulders.
It would be a good shoulder workout.
Yeah, but we're making progress on the event. We got the links for the sponsorships. We got the link for donors. So anybody who's interested in donating to the event but cannot make it or doesn't want to complete the ruck, we always encourage coming out and challenging yourself physically, of course. But if you can't do it or you simply don't want to, we still appreciate the donations. And those are going directly to the Northeast Ohio Foundation for Patriotism. And they have been incredible to work with so far. So again, good job to you for leveraging Google and finding such a great foundation.
Yeah, you gotta appreciate the Google. Yeah, I would say there's 4 ways. There's 4 ways that you can help out with this. You could do the ruck. $100, walk 22 miles, carrying some weight, or I mean, you don't have to carry weight at all. That's up to you. That's one way. You could sponsor, which would be awesome because we're looking for sponsors. You could just do what you said and just do the general donation. And the beautiful thing about that is you can do any amount. So if you only have $5 that you can spare, $5 is better than no bucks. And then the last way, of course, is if you have nothing, if you have no time to do the ruck, you can't sponsor, you don't have the funds, that's fine. Share what we're doing, put it out there so other people know what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, so I mean, we set, I think for our first ever event, setting a goal of raising $25,000 it's a pretty large amount of money, especially considering, what's going on in the world right now, the cost of living and everything like that. So, like Randy said, every dollar counts and every share counts as well. So if there's anything that you can do, it would be, that's super easy, doesn't cost anything, doesn't take much time. Is just to hit that share button. If you're out there, if you're following us on social media and you see us posting about it, just share it. Maybe you can't join or participate, but somebody in your network, most likely they can and they want to. So we would be greatly appreciative of that as well. And we're also going up to local businesses. So Monday, that's what I'm going to spend my day doing, going to local businesses, hanging the flyers up, getting the word around town. And because this is just the first, this is the first of many. Eventually, or excuse me, soon moving forward, we're going to do one event per quarter. Sometimes most of the time they're going to be ruck marches, but sometimes we might change it up. We're thinking about what a dry try, and potentially some other events that we're brainstorming right now. But
The
we're going
Murph.
the Murph. We're going to do a Murph for Memorial Day, and the Memorial Day events and the Veterans Day events. We're going to donate a bigger portion of everything that we raise to the Northeast Ohio Foundation for Patriotism right now, and every event we're looking to donate 25% of all the money that we raise to the Northeast Ohio Foundation for Patriotism until, again, for now. So we found an awesome partner in them, and we're going to continue to work with them moving into the future. But we're also thinking that eventually we want to start our own 501c charitable nonprofit, so we can do this directly and give back directly from Ideal Tough Rucks and Ideal Impact, which we're excited about.
And I was thinking like usually when you are doing something for the first time, you don't set like this lofty goal like we did. Like maybe the expectation you're like, I'm not gonna have one because we don't really know what we're getting ourselves into here. But no, we just said, let's pick some big number and see if we can reach it. So
Yeah.
25,000 is a little chunk of change.
Yeah, well, you know what they say, shoot for the moons, and even if you miss, you land amongst the stars. So we're going big and trying to not sell ourselves short, because here's the thing. So you set that goal, and this is going to sound familiar for anybody who's listened to the show for a while or talked to us through coaching or directly. But if you set the goal too big, and like, all right, so we're setting a goal of 25,000. Let's say hypothetically we fall a little short and we only get 20,000. That's still way better than setting a goal of 10,000 and accomplishing the goal of 10,000. So it's more about, or I guess the moral here is don't think too small. Like you'd rather think too big, fall a little bit short of that goal, and still make a ton of progress. And this is just the first one. So we're going 25,000. Eventually, we want to donate $250,000 a year to veterans and their families. And we're talking about how exactly we're going to do that, what it looks like, what services we're going to offer. So it's a really exciting time because, again, going back to the beginning of all of this, you and I had a goal to be able to give back to veterans and their families in need. And I think when like my very first time that I thought about my purpose. So this is going back, I don't know, at least 2 years, 2.5, 3 years. I wasn't doing well from a mental health standpoint. And a lot of that struggle that I was going through is because I knew that I lacked purpose in life, but I couldn't really figure out what it was. And I was putting a ton of pressure on myself because I was in my mid 30s and I didn't have that purpose. And I heard a bunch of other people talking about their purpose and how happy it made them. So there was this conflict. And Callie and I were sitting in the backyard at our last house and we were having a fire. And Leonard Skinner was on. I think it was Tuesday's Gone. And I had just
Love some
gotten
Skinner.
done. Oh, you gotta love Skinner, especially in the backyard around a fire. It's just perfect. But I just got done reading "Running for My Life" by Warren Dunn, Work Done, and he was a running back for the Atlanta Falcons and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he started a foundation based off of, and he got the inspiration from his childhood. His mom was a female police officer. She got killed in the line of duty, and she had never purchased her own home. And he really wanted single moms to experience purchasing their own home. So he started a foundation that would rehab homes, stock them with food, with cleaning supplies, basically everything that they needed to get started, and cover the down payment for them. However, he wouldn't buy the home for these families because what they found was typically if you buy something for somebody and you just give it to them, they don't feel a sense of responsibility and they don't take care of it. So they covered the down payment. The home was theirs, but they had to make the monthly payment. And they were also taking financial literacy courses in order to even qualify to, receive this gift of the down payment and the furnished home and all of that stuff. So I was thinking about that. I'm like, man, something like that would be very awesome to do, or something similar to that would be awesome to do for homeless veterans or veterans struggling with their finances. So hopefully this is all coming back full circle to kind of that original vision that we had, but that's something that we still got to work through.
Yeah. Like for me, I've always wanted to help people. So that's kind of like how I ended up in coaching and in teaching. And then throughout my tenure of that, I've found that yes, I can help people, but I'm not doing it on my terms. I have to do it the way that they want me to do it. And that's not as fulfilling as what I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. That's how I felt in the corporate world as well. Like it felt I always wanted to be in leadership. I always wanted to, for the same reason, right? Help develop people, see them grow, get promoted, and, and doing it on corporate terms was just defeating. It didn't make sense to me. We forced people to struggle for a lot longer than they needed to instead of either letting them go so they could go find another position, or if they were a solid employee but just wasn't a good fit for that job, finding room for them inside the company that was a better fit for them, better fit for the company, better fit for their customers. So it was just like you said, it was not fulfilling, and it was actually really defeating to see some of that stuff as well.
It feels like once you go out into that world and you get a job, like if you're not working for yourself, like all common sense is just out the window. You don't do things that involve common sense anymore.
Well, we experienced a lot of that between our days in the National Guard and then in the workforce as well.
Yeah, there's just so many times where you could do something where it would be easier, and then we just don't go that route. Like we want to go the route that doesn't make sense and would be more difficult.
Yeah, and then if you ask why behind it, there either isn't an answer or the answer has no logical thread to it, which is frustrating in both. I think not getting an answer is more frustrating for me. If I would ask, I remember one of the biggest peeves that I had was I was in the same organization for 4 years, so I watched it grow and change a lot over those 4 years, especially because in the grand scheme of things, in a 70 something year old company, this unit was, I think, maybe 5 or 6 years old by the time that I got to it. So it's still very new, so evolving rapidly. And we were constantly asking the employee, like the entry level employees within the organization, to do more, to do more. There's always something more. Every freaking week or month, there was something new that we were asking them to do. And I finally asked them, like, hey, I have a question. So when are we going to take something off their plate? Because we keep piling more on their plate, and I don't think it's reasonable for us to, set expectations that they're going to be able to accomplish all of these things, like, or that most people will be able to accomplish all of these things that we're asking them to do. So when are we going to take something off their plate? And I don't. It was just that the senior manager that I asked that question to, just had that look in his eyes like, oh, we hadn't even considered that. And like, what are we doing here? Like, we're just burying people in work, and burying then, because you're asking your reps to do more, you're asking your your frontline leadership to do more. Obviously, it's like, hey, we're getting buried too here, and it's just not realistic. So many people in those roles, both individual contributor and leadership, they're working 50, 60 hours a week and just absolutely miserable. And the ones that really were good at their jobs were working hard just to get out of that organization because it was so brutal, and it just made it really hard to come to work some days.
Yeah, my favorite thing, like we do weekly meetings throughout the school year, and like two of them are admin led, and there's always like on the list going in, it's like we're gonna be starting this new initiative in like a month. And then you're like, well, what is this initiative? Like, oh, there's a resource that you can find online and read it, or you could buy this book and read that. When the hell am I going to have time to do that on my free time? Like, there should be some type of formal training if you want me to do this initiative on top of the 1,000 other initiatives that we are currently doing.
Yeah. But then you get into the formal training, and that's garbage too. Like our big thing that we did was web-based trainings, and it was like you said, it was okay. So I have all of this other stuff going on. Now I have to take an hour-long web-based training. I have to try to block out all external distractions while I'm doing this web-based training, so I can hopefully get some of the information. Because for me, I don't learn well that way. I'm not a web-based training. I am very, hey, show me how to do this, and I'll figure it out once you just show me how to do it. Or, I can just learn by giving me the tool or giving me the process, and I'll figure it out. I'll ask questions as I have them. There's something about clicking through a bunch of slides. I have a hard time focusing on it, and I have a hard time retaining the information. And so when you put a web-based training out to an organization of a couple thousand people, and how many of those people do you truly think are completing the training and aren't actually just clicking through it as fast as they possibly can so they can get back to doing their job, so they're not stuck at work for an extra hour, hour and a half, whatever it may be that day. It's
I would
it's
say
just
probably three people are doing
yeah, yeah.
it.
Honestly, like probably yeah, a very less than 1%, I would say, of
There's
people
got
are
to be
actually doing it.
someone that's doing it, but it's the minority for sure.
It's probably the person that created the training because they're like, oh, this is
This is
legit. Like this
amazing.
is awesome.
I can tell you whenever I'm doing those web-based trainings and I'm just clicking through, I'm always working on something else. So I'm not even listening. I just wait for the talking to stop. I'm like, all right, I got to click. And then I go back to what I was working on.
So we could be a little bit more disciplined with those things, right? But there's also more, and I also like you. I try to put myself in the position of, hey, yeah, this is an organization of a couple thousand people, so I understand that you need to be efficient when it's coming to those things. But is it more efficient to get everyone, not everyone at the same time, but have leader instructed training, do it once, do it right, or have everybody skip through a WBT, not get any of the information, and then ask a million questions afterwards because they didn't retain anything? So it's like, what is the actual long term payoff and impact of those things? Remember the course that we had to take for the Army before that operation that we did across the country?
Yeah.
I can't remember the name of the course, but it was ridiculously long. It was an incredibly long web-based training. It was to get us like hazmat certified, and it took forever. And it
I
got to the point.
remember like how long it took to do the online training just to go to NCO school. That was
Oh
stupid.
yeah, that was. And what happened was people just wrote down the answers and then
We shared them with each
distributed.
other.
Yeah, we distributed them
Yeah.
out because I mean, again, like okay, so how much from a W-based or web-based training am I actually going to learn about leadership? Am I going to learn more by doing that, or getting out into a week long or 2 week course where
This is
we're
a month.
actually, was it a month long that
I
we
think
were
it was
there?
20, 28 days or something. Maybe I'm
Oh,
wrong. I don't remember.
yeah. But I
I,
will say in that course, like I did learn a lot, but you're in it, you're doing it, and it's a crawl, walk, run. So you're learning about it in a classroom, you're talking about it in a classroom, and then you're applying it in actual training exercises. Like that's an effective way of
Yeah.
learning for most
No,
people.
it was a good school. I mean, I did it in December in Ravenna. That sucked ass. But
Yeah,
other
and
than
you
that,
you waded across a creek at the end, didn't you?
yeah, I got lost. I
Lost on the land nav course, so you decided to jump in ice cold water. That's
I
smart.
didn't decide to jump in. It was so like you had to find 4 points, and I found three real quick, and I had like an hour left, and the fourth point was way the fuck off from everything else. So I was like I got an hour, I'll just go look for it. So I go out and I start looking for that last point, and I don't know what I did, but I screwed up on the azimuth somehow, and then I'm like, where the hell am I? So in the beginning, they gave you like these coordinates to shoot an oh shit azimuth to get you back to the start of the course. So I was like, I'm gonna have to shoot this oh shit azimuth. So I shoot that, and then I'm walking, and I'm like, fuck, I gotta cross a creek in December. I'm like, hopefully it's not deep, and I jump in, it's waist deep, and then like they blow a whistle when there's like 15 minutes left, and I was like, man, I'm gonna have to run. So I had to run back. I made it, but yeah, that was what stopped me from being honor grad. Actually, I got like goes on everything, and then I got a 3 out of 4 on that, and that was what prevented me from getting the honor grad.
And you know what's funny is I went through that course shortly before you did, and we didn't do land nav at all.
Really?
Yeah, that's what as you were saying that, as you were telling that story, I remember my course was actually shorter than yours because there was no land nav. So they
That's
had land
bullshit.
nav
It's
in it for,
bullshit.
dude, and it worked out so perfectly for me. So they had land nav for a very long time in that course, and then they took it out for a short period. Like I want to say that it was out of the warrior leadership course for less than a year, and I just happened to go in that time frame where I didn't have to do it. The hardest part for most people in my class was passing the PT test. Like we had a lot of people, not a lot of people, but we had a few people fail the course, and it was because they couldn't pass the PT test, and that was on like day 1 or 2. They
Well,
did that first to
let's talk
eliminate
about
people.
that real quick.
The
What do you
PT test.
think? What went? Not even just the PT test. Like let's talk about the whole course. Like what do you think went into people failing the PT test, other than them being out of shape?
Well, a lot of it is a lack of accountability. So in the National Guard, you're obviously only there 1 weekend a month, 2 weeks a year, unless you're either ramping up for deployment or on deployment. So people lack ownership. They don't take it upon themselves to be working out during the month, and then they try to take PT tests, which ultimately, in the grand scheme of things, like for me, and this yes, genetics play into this. I could pass an Army PT test without training for it. Like I could go out there and struggle through 2 miles. The push-ups and sit-ups they're incredibly easy. And now the PT test has evolved, and it's now the APFT, which is a much different test than what Randy and I did. But yeah, I mean, it's just they don't take it upon themselves to be keeping up on their workouts throughout the month. Like in my last unit, we had a ton of people that couldn't pass the PT test. And a majority of it, and I actually had somebody tag me in a post or comment on something yesterday saying she still remembers that I would tell the remedial PT people, so the people that passed their PT test, they would get to come hang out and work out with me before and after each day on drill. And she was like, you would tell us it was all in our heads. And she's like, once I actually made that realization that like this was mostly just a mental challenge, she's like, I passed my PT test, and she's like, I'm still in the National Guard 5 years later, and I haven't failed one
Oh,
since.
that's awesome. I mean, I agree with what you're saying about the ownership and accountability. That's not the direction I was going thinking with this. So what I'm thinking is like training to the standard. When you are at your unit and you're taking the PT test and you're doing push-ups, you're getting away with a lot of shit.
Yeah.
And then you're thinking, oh, that's the standard. And then you go to the NCO course. Oh no, you have to do a real push-up. If you're not
Yeah.
locking those arms out, they're not counting it. And we had a lot of people in my course fail as well because they just weren't doing the exercise correctly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You're right. You're absolutely right. I wasn't thinking about that, but yeah, dude. And it was very much a good old boy system too. Like if
Oh
you
yeah, if you're
were,
friends with the person that's
yeah,
that's observing your tests, you're gonna pass. Like there was, I mean, don't get me wrong. There's those who stick to it, and this is the way you have to do it, and you have to meet this number. But I'm not gonna lie. There was times where people would be like one or two off, and I'd be like, yeah, yeah, I gave it to them.
yeah. And I did the same thing, and especially because and ultimately looking back on it and where we are now from a personal development and a leadership standpoint, I would say I'm still conflicted on that, honestly, though, because there were some people that I would do that for that were just they were really good soldiers. Like they were there to help. They were there to take care of other people. They did what was asked of them. They took their job seriously. And if they were a few off on that, yeah, I agreed. I would give that to them as well because ultimately, I didn't think that the difference, a couple push-ups, was going to make a difference in our readiness as a unit to complete our mission. But I thought having that person in the unit participating actively was a benefit to our readiness as a unit. So it was definitely some critical thinking that went into my decisions to do that. And again, it was a couple repetitions, and the run you had to pass the run. Like
Yeah,
there
the
wasn't
run is what
really,
it is.
yeah, there wasn't any, pencil whipping on the run. But on the push-ups and sit-ups, like, okay, so this person's a really good soldier. They do what they're supposed to do. They have a ton of leadership potential. They're setting a good standard when it comes to all of the other work that we do. Yeah, I'm not gonna. Yeah, looking back, like I think we made the right decision in many of those things. Even though yes, there is a standard, you should be meeting it. If it's within a couple, I think there's some gray room in there, honestly, and that's just my opinion on it. But I'm also willing to for somebody to say that I'm wrong.
I mean, I look at it this way. If if the standard is 32 push-ups and Kyle is showing up on time to drill every single weekend, he's doing every task that he needs to do. He goes above and beyond looking for work and helping others, and he knocks out 31 push-ups instead of 32. Should that prevent him from staying in the unit?
Right.
Are you not going to be able to drive a truck because you only did 31 push-ups instead of
Yeah.
32 push-ups?
And here's yeah, and that's the other thing. Even with the run, like I thought it was funny before because I think they've changed it a little bit, and I might be wrong on that, but when we were in, the physical standards were the same across the board. Like if you were infantry or a truck driver or a paper pusher, whatever your job in the military was, you had to meet the same physical standards. And while I agree that I think there should be a minimum physical standard for everyone across the board, because at the end of the day, we're all soldiers, regardless of what our job is, I do think it's a little bit, hey, if we're on a convoy, and could it happen? Like, could the convoy break down, get attacked, and for some reason you have to run a few miles? Sure, that could absolutely happen. However, it's very unlikely. Now, infantry guys are going to be going out; they're going to be getting after it physically each and every day. So I do think that there is a much different physical requirement between those two roles. And the other thing that I think about too is like, hey, if I'm in a situation where my life is in danger or my friends' lives are in danger and I have to run, I will tell you that adrenaline is
Right.
probably gonna carry me through in that situation. And, as long as I have been treating with my body with respect and actually doing some physical activity. But ultimately, when we go back to that, dude, what was it when we were so before we turned 27, it was like a 16:36 2 mile was the minimum. It was like 50 push-ups and like 50 something sit-ups or something like were the minimums. It wasn't hard. Whatever it was easy as hell.
I never had to worry about the minimums, so I don't even know what they were. I was always going for the maximum.
Yeah, same. It was the max was like 13-minute 2 mile, like 80 push-ups and 80 something sit-ups, I think. I think the
Yeah, I don't
sit-ups were
know.
more there. You had to do more sit-ups than push-ups, but ultimately, even that, like now, I think I think I could, and my age, so now I'm 30, almost 37. So I get way more time. I have to do less push-ups and less sit-ups to max it. And I think I could probably max the PT test right now as back like for the prior standards from when we were 27.
And the funny thing is, like back then, like I thought the run, it was just unattainable. I was never going to hit that 13-minute 2 mile.
Those short
And
little legs, you got to move those bitches real quick to get that.
yeah, but like in the last 2 years, I've done it, which is
Yeah.
crazy. I'm older and I'm more beat up, and I'm able to do it. Well, I wouldn't be able to do it today, but I was able to do it within the last 2 years where I couldn't do it when I was like 25, and I had the mindset that I just can't do it. It's too hard.
Well, the mindset, and we did not treat our bodies with as much respect back then as we do now
No, I didn't know what the
because
hell I was doing. I was just
we were just out there lifting heavy and
just doing
not
crazy shit.
stretching. Yeah, just we are strong and stiff as hell. And we were still able to do pretty fucking well on the PT test. I never maxed the PT test. I never maxed the whole thing all at once. I maxed each event at one point. So I maxed the run, but on the time that I maxed the run, I didn't max the sit ups. So I only maxed the push ups and the run. And then there were other times where I'd max the push ups and the sit ups, but then I didn't max the run. And it was funny because, looking back on it, when we talk about that whole mindset, I looked at that as a failure. Like I would score, so to max you have to get a 300. I think the highest score I got was like a 295. And that was an incredible failure to me, even though a lot of people in the unit struggled to even pass the test. And I'm out there beating myself up because I didn't perfect it. And looking back again, that mindset was lingering across so many different things. But going back to treating our bodies with respect, dude, there were times where we would be up, we would be operating on 2 hours of sleep after drinking most of the night and then go out there and take a PT test. So it's like, well, obviously that's not optimal.
I mean, that was the majority of the time.
Yeah, you slam, you drink all night, get a couple hours of sleep, slam a monster, drink some water, and go out there and get after it. And my goal on those mornings was just to not throw up.
Yeah, you look back on it now and realize how dumb that was.
It's so dumb. It was so dumb. And
Going
now
back to
I
the
can't even fathom exercising after a night of drinking. That's why I just barely drink anymore.
yeah, I don't. I mean, maybe once in a blue moon, but it's few and far between the amount of times I drink now. And if I am drinking, I'm not having more than a couple because I don't
Yeah.
want to feel like shit the next day. But if we go
Yeah.
back to the what we were talking about, like training to the standard, that land nav course. So we did the classroom portion and then we had to do a practice land nav course and then you had to take the actual land nav course. So the practice land nav course was it's the same as the land nav course. You have to shoot your points and you have to go find them. They were all out in the open. Like I could stand where in one spot, and if I shot the azimuth and on my compass and I looked, I would see it, and then I could just look and find the next one. And then you go and take the actual course, and it was not that. It was they were in the woods, they were hidden. So how did that prepare me and the rest of the people in the class to go out and actually excel on the land nav? We had a lot of people fail the land nav portion, a lot.
Yeah. And well, and it's because in big organizations, including the military, a lot of the times this type of thing becomes a check the box. It's not intentional. It's not, it may designed to actually help. It's designed to check the box to say that it was done as a CYA for the organization itself. And that was a lot of our training in the military was check the box shit, whether it was a PowerPoint brief or an actual physical training, it was just a check the box. And honestly, I've noticed that in some of the habits that I've set out to establish for myself that there wasn't any intent behind them. It was literally to check the box to say that I did it because I was showing off how disciplined I was. Like fasting for me, that was a good check the box one where I did it a couple times. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was beneficial, and then I set it out. I'm like, I'm going to do this once a month. Once a month, I'm going to fast for 24 hours. Once a month, I'm going to fast for 36 hours. And just recently. And so I've done that for a few months, and recently I was doing it again, and I'm like, I've kind of lost the intentionality behind this. I'm doing it just to struggle, just to show people how disciplined I am, that I can starve myself for 24 hours or 36 hours just to show everybody, hey, look at me. I'm super disciplined. You should do the shit that I do. And this last time I am fasting, I have a call with my coach, Aaron Belke, and we're talking about that mindset around, hey, it has to be hard for it to be worth it, and how wrong that is. Like, not everything has to be hard. And I don't have to intentionally struggle. I don't have to intentionally just make my life miserable. Like, there are some things that can just be easy. And it made me recognize, I'm like, what's the intent behind me fasting, right? Am I doing it for the health benefits? Am I doing it because it's good for me? No, I'm doing it just because I want to say that I did it. And I went and ate, and I'm like, man, that was a lot of pressure. I felt so much happier after that, because discipline without intent is literally just checking the box and making your life miserable. And then tying this back, it's the same thing. If you're going through training, if you're spending time on something and there's no intent behind it, or the intent is wrong, it's a giant waste of time, and you're literally just making something a huge pain in the ass for no fucking reason. So when you're doing those things, just maybe habits, training, reading, whatever it may be that you're doing, make sure that there's actual intent behind it. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time, which you're never going to get back.
It's funny you say that. We've talked about this before, but like I would say like the previous 10 years of my life, I thought I was disciplined and I was doing all these crazy tasks and challenges, which like I thought were hardcore, but there was no intent behind them whatsoever. And like I don't think I started being intentional with what I was doing until we started actually talking about it like a year ago. Like I had a list on Habit Share of probably like 12 to 13 things. And I recently just like looked at that list and like, why the hell am I trying to make myself do 13 different things on a daily basis? So I've narrowed that list down to things that I feel are important and purposeful in my life.
Yeah, yeah. And it goes back to that, like you said, the intentionality behind discipline. And I think this was something that I couldn't explain well when we first started this. I think, and again, I think that's part of the process, right? It's having small realizations, it's figuring it out. At first it was, hey, the ideal skills, all five of these. And it's like, okay, of those five, it's hard to teach somebody in 6 months how to be more intentional, more disciplined, more emotionally intelligent, accountable, loyal. So what's the base of that? Okay, it's discipline. So let's focus on discipline. And then we were kind of like, or at least me, I should say, I'm like, you just have to do shit that you don't want to do to callous your mind, like Goggins says. And there is some benefit to that. I'm not saying that there is a time and place for doing hard shit just because it's hard. Like for me, like the gym, the more that I push myself, the more difficult I make that workout, the more benefit physically and mentally I get from it. And that's just me personally. So I'm using myself as an example. But stuff like fasting or meditation, it's like, am I doing this just to say that I do it? Or am I doing it because I'm actually receiving value from it? And there's an actual reward from it. Because if you're not getting a reward from the things that you're doing, you're not going to stick with it, because if there's no reward, there's no intent. There's this clear reward in what I get out of my workouts. For me, there wasn't a clear reward in what I was getting out of fasting. It's like, do I need to lose weight? No. Am I comfortable with my overall health level? Yes. So now what I'm going to do is, when I feel like fasting, because I think there's going to be plenty of times where I'm like, hey, like, I need a reset. I need to cleanse my system. Like, I'm going to fast for a couple days. That's going to be tremendously easier to accomplish than, hey, it's the end of the month. I haven't fasted this month, so I'm going to fast right now. Even though, and the other thing that's been challenging for me is, like, I'm going out on 60, 75, 90-minute runs. Well, that's fucking not only hard to do when you haven't eaten for 36 hours, it can also be dangerous to do when you haven't eaten for 36 hours. So now I have more flexibility to to do it when it makes sense and when I actually want to do it. Everything in life doesn't have to be difficult. You have to be intentional with what is difficult and what isn't.
Right. Well, like the book I'm reading right now, like I'm trying to be specific with what I'm doing. Like what's the 20% that I want to achieve and get done in my day and in my life. So like
What are
all
you
the other
reading right now, Randy?
what is it 10x is greater than 2x or is it 10x
10x
is
is
better than
easier
easy
than
is it
2x.
whatever it is, it's 10x is I'm gonna say it's better than 2x. So
Well, 10x is definitely better than 2x, but the book is 10x is easier than 2x.
either way, like the just the principle of it, I mean,
Yeah.
it's so simple, yet it's like something that I've never thought about. Like a lot of shit that you do on a daily basis, like why are you doing it?
Mm-hmm. Dude, and the what I've started doing is what's helped me with that mindset because it's first of all an incredible book and it's really geared towards entrepreneurship, but it you can leverage that concept in any part of your life, like especially the shit that you do in your personal life that you could have somebody else do. So, for instance, for me, recently, that's cutting the grass. It took me, I cut the grass at our new house one time. It was 2 hours. I'm like, okay. So the way that I look at it is what is my time worth? And right now, with everything that we're doing with my clients, with what I'm charging, I value my time at about $150 an hour. Well, if I can hire somebody to cut my grass for $35 an hour, why am I wasting my time on cutting the grass? So when you look at things in that way, both from a business perspective and a personal perspective, and you focus in on the things that actually add value to your life and that you enjoy doing, it just opens up so much freedom of time, of happiness. It really unlocks the way that you approach and the way that you think and feel about things.
Yeah. I mean, let's look at it like in a numbers game. If you have 10 things that you're trying to focus on, like how much attention are you able to give to those 10 things?
Not a ton. You're spread thin.
Right. So you knock it down to one or two things. I mean, your focus is lasered in now.
Mhm.
Like I feel like with what we were doing, like we were trying to do a bunch of different things at once with Ideal, which made it challenging and stressful. And now that
Stressful. So
yeah,
stressful.
now that we've like lasered in on just like one or two things, it's still stressful. It's still stressful, but we have tight timelines, and that's why it's stressful. And it's our first time doing a lot of these things, and it's going to get easier as it comes. But we've narrowed down our focus on what we're doing, and that's made it a little more enjoyable than trying to do 100 things at once.
Yeah, for sure. And in everything that you said in there, it applies to creating new habits too, right? So if you're trying to create 10 new habits all at once, or let's say you're trying to create 10 new habits and you're trying to eliminate or limit 5 negative habits that were bad for you, that is super overwhelming. And chances are you're not going to make the progress that you really want. And so narrow in on 1 to 2 things. I like to do two. One positive habit that you want to increase the frequency of and eventually see the results from that. And one negative habit that you want to decrease the frequency of and eventually see the results of that. I think we look at change in our life and business like we were doing, right? And you take on too much at once, it feels super overwhelming. Then you fall off the wagon and you eventually maybe you get back on track and you just typically what we do is repeat this cycle. It's this cycle of motivation. You get started, you take on too much, you feel overwhelmed, you quit, repeat, and you waste a ton of time, you never probably a ton of time and a ton of money depending on what the habit is, and then you never realize the result. It's like, no, just start small and then build upon it. And it's the same thing with business, same thing with life, same thing with relationships, habit, whatever it is that you're approaching. It's okay to start small. We don't have to take on a ton. No big change, no big positive change is going to happen overnight, and that's something we need to keep in mind.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people that we talk with, that's one of their main issues. It's like they want to do a complete overhaul of their life all at once, and they're listing out like 10 tasks that they're trying to achieve all at once. And I'm like, well, you haven't been doing any of these things, And now
Right.
all of a sudden you're going to do all of them. I mean, it's going to be overwhelming. So maybe we should dial it back a bit, focus in on one thing. And once we got that thing down, then we can go on to the next one. Like having a list is fine, but trying to achieve all those things at once is it's not going to help you. You're going to fail, and then it's just going to be that downward spiral.
Yeah, and what's better, slow incremental change or getting started, falling off, and never experiencing it? So I think we just, again, this comes back to a lot of the instant gratification culture that we've created where you want these things to happen overnight. Well, no, like I started working out really after high school. Like in high school, even in sports, I didn't really work out that much, but so it's taken me, what is it, almost 20 years now to see the results that I've seen, and that's ups and downs, and gaining weight and losing weight, and falling off track with my diet for very short periods of time and getting back on track. It's not this like straight climb up to the results that you want, and then even when you get there, the work's not over. Like you either have to work to maintain the results that you've accomplished or to take the results to the next level past that. So don't get it into your head that you're ever good. When you start on a journey of growth, whether it's physical growth, mental growth, emotional growth, business growth, personal growth, whatever it is, the destination is really, there is no day. Once you get there, you still got to work.
Right.
Otherwise, you're going to lose the result that you want. So that's something to keep in mind too. And if you take that 10x is easier than 2x mindset, where you're really focusing in on that 20% of things that you mentioned, Randy, that you're really good at, that you really want to do, you're going to get there even faster because you're going to have other people working on that 80% that really want to do those things. And it's all just going to come together in this perfect recipe for success and, long-term results.
That destination, it might change along the way. I mean, I'm not even going to say it might change. It is going to change along the way. Like I started exercising when I was 12 because we moved to Leroy from Painesville, and I didn't know anyone in Leroy. I had no friends. We lived on a street where we were the only house at one point. And I was like, I have nothing to do. So I started lifting, and I had no idea what I was doing. I was doing 10 sets of 10 on bench press. So that was my,
That's German volume training.
yeah, I was just doing there was no lower body exercises taking place.
No,
It was
no.
strictly upper body. And then like you get older and you learn more. And then, I got into like powerlifting. So that was my routine for a while. Then I got hurt and I was like, all right, can't do this anymore. So I gotta move on, find something new. So it's constantly gonna be changing. You might be on this journey, this fitness journey, and you get injured and you gotta change it up. As long as you're doing something, it's better than doing nothing. We get so focused in on like, oh, I gotta do it this way. It has to be done this way to get this result. No, just the whole point of exercise is to move and get
Yeah.
healthier.
Yeah, I've run into some good examples with some clients too. Somebody who wanted to, they had lifting, 4 days a week, and they picked up a second job. Time got really, tight, and became harder to get into the gym to lift 4 times a week. So, okay, well, what's your goal here? What's the intent behind lifting 4 days a week? And really, they just want to be a healthier individual. It's like, okay, well, in order to be a healthy individual, you don't have to go to the gym and lift weights. You can get, instead of an hour lifting session, you can do a 20-minute HIIT workout. You can go walk for an hour. Like there's so many different ways to get in that movement that you were saying. And that just makes it, when you really break down the intent and you structure the habit to match the intent and to match the overall goal, it becomes a lot less stressful because it gives you a little bit more flexibility and freedom. And then when you take it and you apply it to somebody else. So the other one that I was talking about, so setting a habit of cooking at home 7 days a week for dinner. And what I would notice is, hey, that's not happening. So you set this goal and it's not happening. So let's revisit the intent behind that. And when I challenged the intent, he was thinking, oh, that's a good point. I guess it's actually, it can be just as cost effective for me to eat out if I'm just mindful of where I'm going. And from a health perspective, I can eat out and just make healthy choices. So I think I really need to revisit the intent behind this. Now, if the intent behind it was I want to be spending that time cooking with my girlfriend, that's why I want to cook at home. Well, chances are it's going to be a lot easier to stick to that habit if there is a specific positive reward. In that case, the positive reward of that habit is spending more time with my girlfriend. If that's not what the intent is, and the intent was to save money or to eat healthier, but you can accomplish that by going out and you don't have to do dishes and you don't have to spend the time cooking, well, maybe it doesn't make sense to have that habit, or at least not to have that habit as frequently. Maybe instead of 7 days a week, do it 4 days a week or 5 days a week instead of, 7 days a week that you were eating out before. So again, just it all comes back to that intent and the mindfulness behind that. And it's really a science like behind habit, or setting up positive habits in your life. And we're all just built of habits when you really break it down. But there's a lot of science to it. And I'm reading a good book right now. So Lou, I know you're out there. I know you're listening. But I decided I am going to read The Power of Habit. So I started that this week, and I agree. So Lou told me, because I was reading Principles by Ray Dalio, which is it's a high level book, and Power of Habits is probably much more like entry level, when you're comparing the two. But I think it's been really beneficial for me so far to be able to explain the benefits, how to establish habits, the rewards behind your habits, and everything like that. So for everybody out there, Power of Habits, it's an incredible book. It's a yellow cover with like red lettering, but my dogs ripped like the first 10 pages out, and so I don't have the cover anymore. But I think it's for anybody who's getting started, who just is really struggling replacing negative habits with positive habits. It does a great job of breaking down like the actual neurological science behind it.
Like what I like about like us bringing in the intentionality aspect is like it challenges the why. Like I was always like, it has to be done this way. If I'm doing a workout, I need to get in this many reps and this many sets, and I have to do it this way. And if I don't do it this way, it's not an effective workout.
Mm-hmm.
And then now that I've gotten a little bit older and wiser, and I sit down and think about that, like, but why? Why was I doing it that way? What was the intent behind it? And then I've learned like the way I was doing it, it's not the smartest way to do it. It's not the healthiest way to do it. I'm overdoing it. So you have to think about the intentionality. Like that's a big part of it. That's a huge aspect of it that most people just don't think about. Like when they're doing a diet, they're like, I'm just going to cut out this completely, or I'm going to do it this specific way. And they're doing this fad diet and it ends up not working. So like, what's the why behind it?
Mm-hmm. I think that's important with leadership too. Like if you're implementing a change for your organization, for your team, whatever it may be, you better understand the why behind it. And there better be a good why behind it, because that was a huge mistake that I made when I was a leader, especially in the beginning, is I didn't necessarily ask, if senior leadership told me that we were making a change, I was like, cool. And I would roll it out. And then my team would ask me, well, why are we doing this? And I had no answer except for, well, that's what we were asked to do. And it makes it really hard in that situation for the people being told to implement the change to actually do it. If they don't know why we're doing it, it's very hard for them to do. It's the same thing on an individual level. If you set a habit, you're like, hey, I'm going to make this a habit, exercising, eating better, smoking less, whatever it may be, and you don't have a clear intent, a clear why behind it. Some of those are silly, like, right? Like, obviously, with cigarettes, like, oh, I'm saving money, it's way better for my health. So some of those whys are kind of implied. But again, going back to the fasting, what is my intent behind this? Or going back to the lifting with one of my clients, or going back to the cooking dinner at home, like what is the true intent here? And a lot of times, like what I'll do is I kind of want people to try it out for themselves first. Like, hey, like go ahead, set your habits and let's reevaluate it. So that way they can kind of see this concept in action. Like, hey, I'm setting too much or I'm setting it too frequently. That's not the right approach. And a lot of times people realize this, kind of on their own with that like guidance and that open conversation around it. But it's incredible the way that our minds work. And that's where I think sometimes motivation, first of all, you don't need motivation to get started, but motivation can also be a dangerous thing, because when you're feeling super motivated, you're like, oh, I can take on the world. Like I can take on all these 10 habits. This is, yeah, dude. And you don't hear somebody that's trying to be the voice of reason because you're so fired up and you got adrenaline pumping and all this stuff. It's like when you don't have that and you come down off of that high from the motivation, you start to see things a little bit more clearly and a little bit more realistically. So I think motivation is a dangerous thing because one, again, it can cloud your thought process, and two, people get addicted to that feeling where, and then they're like, well, I'm not motivated, so I'm just not going to do it. Well, if you rely on motivation, you're never going to be successful because it's super temporary, super short term, and you need to learn to replace that with discipline, consistency, and habits.
Yeah, I feel like there's a fine line with those habits, and if you're setting too many, or if there's no why behind it, and then like you're probably not going to push as hard to achieve it. And then usually most people, because one of our pillars is accountability and ownership, most people are going to be super critical of themselves in that aspect, and that's just going to destroy your mindset.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You're talking about like if they're, so let's say they set a habit and they're only accomplishing it 40% of the time because they set it way too frequently. Like I don't read it all and I'm gonna read 30 pages every single day now.
Yeah.
And you laugh, but like,
Yeah, I know.
people do
People do
that.
it.
We do it, right? We set those standards too high for ourselves sometimes. And it's like, well, yeah, why are you beating yourself up over, first of all, 40% is still 40% more than you were doing it before. So you're making progress. And secondly, like, is it realistic? Is that goal that you set for yourself realistic? And why did you, like, okay, so maybe the why behind why you want to read. So yeah, I'm going to read because it's something that I've always wanted to get into. I'm going to read self-development books and I know there's a ton of positive information in there that I can apply to my life. Great. But why 30 pages and why every single day when you're not doing it at all?
Right.
And what's the, so if you do that 40% of the time, or you nail 30 pages a day 3 days a week, and now you see this positive momentum building because your habit tracker is green and you're feeling accomplished, and then you add one more day, and then eventually you add one more day, and then you're comfortable with 5 days a week and you stay there. Now it's habit. Now it doesn't take discipline to do it because it's habit and it's just part of your life and it's in your natural flow. So you can now shift that discipline and create the next habit. So it's in our minds and everything that I've read and learned and applied in my own life, it's much better to start small, build that foundation, and then kind of just layer the bricks on it, step by step, and grow from there.
And focus on the process. Like people see that 40% and they're like, 40% is an F. I just failed. Like, no, 40% is 40% more than what you were doing prior to this. You were at 0%. Now you're
Right.
at 40. No, that's not how we look at it. We look at it like, 40, that's way off from 100%. I am failing at this. And then once you see that you're failing, you start beating yourself up over it. And then that's going to have a negative impact on your life.
Yeah, and it's not the name of the show and the name of the coaching program isn't negative impact. It's ideal impact. It's small incremental steps. And I was talking about that yesterday. It's like we so many of us approach habits in the wrong, like it just, we feel if we don't turn everything around overnight, then it's not worth it. It's like, no, like, and I think that's why journaling is so important. Like journaling and being reflective on your growth is so tremendously important, because if you're not reflecting on it, then it's easy to feel that you're still in the same place even though you've grown exponentially. Like if it wasn't for me journaling since the beginning of the year, I don't think I would be as grateful, as appreciative for all of the progress that I've made both personally and that we've made with Ideal. But it's like, man, like looking back at it 8, almost 9 months ago now, things myself personally and where we're at from a business perspective, it's night and day. It's crazy to look at, but I don't think I would recognize that if it wasn't for journaling.
Yeah. Like we always preach ownership, take ownership. You should take ownership. and we do take ownership, but it feels like for me, like one of the biggest struggles is I will take ownership for negative stuff, failures.
Yeah.
If I don't meet a goal, I hardly ever take ownership of the positive things that are taking
Oh,
place.
that's a great point.
Like if something bad happens, I'm gonna own it. I'm gonna own it, and I'm gonna beat myself up over it because I am super critical of myself. If something if something good happens, I'm just like, oh, that was supposed to happen. So I mean, that's what it is.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you got to look at your mindset, and like I still do this on a daily basis. I still struggle with it, but now I'm starting to realize it, and I can rein myself back in when I'm doing it, or I can reach out to somebody who listens to me, like I did yesterday, and they can they can help rein me back in because we all need support. That's what accountability is.
Yeah.
So just realizing that stuff and knowing it, like going back to the 40% thing, like you take ownership. Yeah, you didn't meet 100%, but take ownership that you got 40%.
Yeah. That's it. Yeah. And it's one thing though with like, okay, so if you're nailing something 80% and then, you're going through a month stretch where you're at 40%, well, now it's time to figure out, okay, what's going on. And maybe it's a realization that your motivation wore off and you need to reevaluate that habit. Did you start too big? Because sometimes we can push through something and make it happen a high percentage of the time if we just push through, but that's not sustainable. So
Right.
it's important to reflect as you go throughout the process. And that's why I like having that habit tracker because like, okay, well, I've been 100% for 6 months. And then over the last 2 months, I've been at 50%. Well, what's going on? Let me evaluate this and figure out what's going on here. Um, the other you mentioned something else in there, but I don't remember what it was. So I got sidetracked on that last point. So, but yeah, anyway, so we're really, for me, like, and we're reevaluating how we're doing things as a business, right? Like, we're really focused. I'm still taking on coaching clients. I have struggled with my mindset around that, but that was completely on me. And I've learned a new appreciation for what I'm doing with that. But from a business perspective overall, we're really focused on these ruck marches. We're focused on our mission hasn't changed. We want to help inspire people to become more disciplined, to build those positive habits in their lives and to realize their results. We're just taking a different approach to how we do it. We're really focusing on the podcast. We're focusing on spreading that message through social media. And then also with the ruck marches, like actually having these physical events where you can come get connected with the community. We started a Facebook group, Ideal Tough Ruck, so we can share rucking pictures, tips, tricks, really make it a community with discussion in it around, getting after it, the mindset that goes into all this stuff, the physical and mental challenges. And that's where we really want to take the business. And then also with the ruck marching t-shirts. So to drop, we're going to have some really funny t-shirts focused on the word ruck. And you can imagine the things that the word ruck rhymes with.
It rhymes with a lot of things.
It rhymes with a lot of really funny things that we can
Yeah.
plug ruck in the place of. So there's going to be some pretty funny, awesome t-shirts that are coming out from us. Here in the near future. I actually just got an email from my friend Aaron, who's designing those for us this morning. So I got to respond to her on that.
We're gonna have some cool wristbands as well.
Yeah, we're gonna have what are the wristbands? We have some we're gonna not reveal yet, and then we're also gonna have event wristbands for
Yeah.
March
Well,
for
we
Heroes.
got the March for Heroes one, and then we got one in the works right now. I mean, we can talk about that one. We got the Embrace the Ruck wristband that'll be coming out. I
Yeah.
like that one.
Yeah, yeah, I like that one, and so the t-shirts are going to be similar to what Randy just mentioned there, and we're really excited about that. And again, so what we're going to do, so moving forward, Veterans Day, Memorial Day, those events, we're shooting to donate about 50% of all of the proceeds from those events, and then 25% from any other events that we host, and then overall with the t-shirts, we're still going to donate 5% of that revenue all to veteran-based foundations. Right now, again, we're working with the Northeast Ohio Foundation for Patriotism. They have been great, but eventually we're looking to start our own and be able to give back directly and be more involved with that as well.
Yep. And what I love about these events is like we can come on here, we can talk about the ideal skills and preach them until we're blue in the face. But now we have an event to test those things. So you're going to be able to get out there and in order to do a 22-mile ruck, like there's going to be some accountability that's going to have to take place. You can't just show up and walk 22 miles. You're going to have to do some training beforehand. Gesundheit. You're going to have to be disciplined with this. You're going to have to be loyal to this. You're going to have, and you're being loyal to help out with the veterans who have already sacrificed so much for you. It's just giving back a little bit. It's giving back half of your day on a Saturday to somebody who signed up to put their life on the line so you could live the life that you want to live.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And I think emotional intelligence is going to be key because trust me, there's going to be plenty of times during that 22 miles where you're probably going to want to quit, where you're feeling a little bit emotional and you're going to have that internal conversation. And again, that's where the intentionality comes into play because, okay, well, remind yourself, why are you here? Like having that intentionality behind it. And again, this goes back to the habits. This goes back to, anything that you're doing in your life, cutting your grass, cleaning your house. Like what is my intent here, and is my that why behind it is a great reminder to either keep yourself on track for that habit or to make a decision to use that time to do something else. But hopefully, if you're paying $100, you want to support veterans, you'll be able to keep that intent in mind and push forward on that march. I promise you, many of you out there that are thinking, I'm not sure if I can do this, you can do it. You might not believe it yet because you've never done something like this. But when you're out there, when you're with a bunch of people, when we're going to be out there going onto the trails with you, or onto the path, I guess I should say, you'll be able to do a lot more than you think you can.
Absolutely. When I did the 20-mile ruck, I mean, there was times during that where I was like, it was pouring down rain. There was giant hills. I was like, man, this sucks. But there was 500 other people out there,
Yeah.
500 other people. And then I would look over to my right and I'd see some guy in his 60s out there hitting a 20-mile ruck. I'm like, man, that's awesome. So when you're
Right.
out there with other people and you're able to talk to them and you're able to communicate with them and converse and hear their stories, it motivates you and it keeps you going.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. All right, man. Well, I think that was everything that we wanted to cover today, and I'm super excited. So again, hey, anybody out there that's listening, that if you disagree with the things that we're saying, or you have your own thoughts and perspectives on some of the topics that we hit on, please reach out to us. Send us a message. We would love to talk to you. We would love to see if it would be possible to get us on a show together and to talk about those disagreements and gain a better understanding. Like right now, I think a hot topic in society right now is the transgender movement that we're experiencing. We've hit on it a little bit here and there with the show, but we would love to have somebody who's going through, either going through transition or they've already transitioned. Come on the show, educate us on your perspectives on why you've made some of the decisions that you made, and we promise to approach things with genuine curiosity. And as long as you do the same and you're open to hearing our perspectives as well, we would love to have you. And that goes into any other topic that you may want to talk about. Like, let's have you on the show. Let's listen to each other, gain a better understanding, and hopefully build some relationships in the meantime as well.
Yeah, that sounds good. And then you guys can find the registration for the ruck on Eventbrite. If you follow us on Facebook or the Gram or on Twitter, like we're posting stuff about this all the time about where the actual link is. There's a general donation link that's on there as well, along with the sponsorship form.
Yeah, and what I'll start doing is I'll actually put all three of those links in the description for the show, on
Perfect,
here on
perfect.
on Spotify, on Apple, and then YouTube as well. So you'll just be able to go to the description of the show, click the link, and it'll take you right to the page that you want. If you are out there and you want to sponsor the event, that when you click that link, it's going to show you the different tiers. If you want to participate in the event, it'll take you to the Eventbrite page. It has all of the information that you need on there. And then again, like Randy said, if you can't come out and you want to make a financial contribution, we have a link for that as well. So really, really excited to get this started. And well, we've gotten it started, but really excited to continue to make progress as of right now. So we have 96 tickets left. but plenty of time for everybody to sign up and get and to get ready to participate in the event. And if you haven't yet, search for Ideal Tough Rucks on Facebook. That's the group that we put together. Go ahead and join that group. We're putting out training plans for the events, and people are out there keeping each other disciplined and staying on top of that stuff. So looking forward to it.
Yep, that sums it up, man.
That wraps it up for today. So thanks everybody. We appreciate the time. And as always, if you have any feedback, you have any suggestions for us, please feel free to reach out. Always open to talking about it.
Bye.
Hey everybody, if you liked what you heard today, please check us out on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. And don't forget to head to Eventbrite and grab one of the 10 tickets available for our monthly Ideal Connect call. Then when you're ready to take the next step, message us on any of our social media pages to book a free coaching consultation call to see how we can help you start living your own ideal life. Thanks again for all of your love and support, and always remember, you have everything you need to achieve success. It's just a matter of believing.